What's going on, my archfiends? What's going on, my archfiends of chaos? Sorry, I wanted to do that Soul Illuminati intro, just to put some humor, because the rest of the video is going to be extremely controversial and might get people pissed off and angry, considering this has a little bit political stuff in this video. So you've been warned. So let's get started. Now, there was actually a certain theme that was put into some of the stuff in the game. Now, it was very settled, but for a Final Fantasy fan like myself, it's not really as much settled as you really think, considering I could see it in the deeper concepts. But could Final Fantasy IX be a feminist-friendly game? And the reason why it made me ask this, the very first thing about Final Fantasy IX we noticed when we had the Queen Barnay take over the throne of Alexandria, well, you know, when she's still a queen, when she's still alive, before Kuja kills her, there's actually one thing that just stands out. The military is mostly female, and the only military men were people of the Knights of Pluto and the leader Steiner. Not to mention the high commander for Queen Barnay's army is General Beatrix, one of the strongest women in Final Fantasy ever. So this is why I think that it could be possible that this could have feminist-friendly themes into it. Because first, the military is all women except for the Knights of Pluto, and General Beatrix is one of the strongest characters. Pretty much, you can actually go on par with Kuja, you know. And then only that, there's actually even stronger themes. As for the villain, Garland, he pretty much is supposed to fit as a stereotypical war-loving uber-conservative who only cares about war. Which I said this is going to be very controversial. And again, this is not about views or anything like that. This is just about stuff I've noticed. And then the other supposed bad guys, which are the guys you play, are like struggling pirates, struggling to survive pirates, pretty much. Which, you know, back in Renaissance time, they were pretty much like thugs. But that's not the point. The point, you know, the point is, there's so many ties to what they put in there. And then also the fact that Kuja, the other villain, was actually it was actually part of the LGB. As you notice, Kuja's extremely feminine type of personality, considering he thinks he's like the most beautiful thing ever, and just the way Kuja comes off. Even though Kuja was a villain, you can't ignore that they had some early, even though this game came out in 2000, this had some LGBT themes, considering Kuja and the way he is. Even though he didn't come out and say he was gay, it kind of explored a little bit of that without anything. Because really, subtlety is the biggest thing for any game ever, especially Final Fantasy. But also, there's also more facts into this. First of all, it ended up being the love story, if you really think about it, because the pirate guy that ends up being the good guy and saving the world and defeating Necron ends up with Garnet, and most of it has its kind of Romeo and Juliet aspects to the thing as well. As well as it also had Beatrix, a woman who's a complete 10. A woman who's a complete model, go out with a goofy looking dude named Steiner, which kind of predicts a little bit what's going on in the world today, where where they're trying to change the status quo. As for back in the 90s, the status quo, if you wanted a 10, you had to be buff, athletic, type of dude, and it's kind of changed now due to the new world rules of, political correctness and, modern day feminism. But nonetheless, does Final Fantasy IX have those themes in it? And I think it does. It's little subtleties, but it showed that we're getting into a new era of the year, as for the fact that Final Fantasy IX came out in 2000. You know, the new millennium. I think that's the new millennium, but pretty much that, you know, it came out 2000, so it kind of started. I guess you could say it was kind of started in that era a little bit, but just by settled piece by piece, you know, settled piece by piece. But it makes sense. Not that this is a bad thing or a good thing. It's not in either way. As a matter of fact, I like Final Fantasy IX's story the way it is, on the fact that it still was Final Fantasy IX and it played like a Final Fantasy game. But it's just themes that are hard to. It is actually themes that are hard not to notice. And they used some of the same themes in 15. As for Final Fantasy 15, the power plant workers were mostly women, and the men stayed at home in Lestalem in 15, which pretty much would have to be a drawback influence to Final Fantasy 9 of how most of the military were nothing but women besides Knights of Pluto. So it really drew inspiration from that, but it's just not. It's not too hard to see the subtleties, especially if you play the games as much as I do. If you're a big fan, then you'll know every aspect of the game, you know, and, you know, the storylines and the characters and the lore. So, you know, I think there were subtle themes to it. You know, they were very subtle. Not only that, Queen Barney has said stuff about men being useless, except for Steiner. Steiner was the exception, and that's because Steiner's loyalty to the Knights of Pluto and that army in the beginning of the game, but she said men are useless. So, there, you know, there's some, again, there's just some bits of points of, you know, current day, modern day politics, even before. And like I said, not good or bad. It's just something I have noticed, and that's why I wanted to talk about it in this video, because I'm here to talk about Final Fantasy. I mean, I do other things too. I do reaction videos and all the other stuff, and I do, you know, streams and everything else. But I want to talk about Final Fantasy, so it's just something that just I could not notice. Like, I try to go to bed and get some sleep, but it's just, it keeps hitting my mind. It just keeps hitting my mind. You know, going back and replaying my memories of playing the game. It's like, wow, I didn't even think that was in there. It's one of those moments. Now, I think some of it started in 7 when we had Cloud cross-dress to save Tifa from a dangerous sex trafficker, which... well, you know, which a little bit, and then there's a little bit, you know, kind of romance story in 8 too, but it's just something I can't help but notice that it's there. It's subtle unless you really look deep, unless you look real deep, so deep you dig a deep hole, and then once you go in the deep hole, you dig until your shovel's broke. And I kind of went deeper than I possibly should have, more, you know, reasonably and healthy way. But you know what? It wouldn't be a discussion if I didn't look deep into this concept as well. But the villain known as Garland, the villain that's supposed to be uber conservative, who, you know, is war loving, has pretty much sent war to the world by screwing over the LGB character Kuja, thus causing a, you know, war turmoil. Of course, you know, again, you really don't see these themes until you really look close at the material. So it's just one of those things that I can't help but notice. You know, it's just one of those things I can't help but notice that's in there. And they defeat Garland. Of course, the LGB character known as Kuja overthrows and kills Garland for, you know, brainwashing him. So pretty much it has a little bit of a political agenda. But then again, are we surprised? It's a Japanese game for one. Are we surprised that it don't push the boundaries? Final Fantasy games have been known to push boundaries, you know, beyond boundaries, and that's what I liked about the games. It didn't care. The material it was just written, and that's it. Written and ready to go. It didn't worry about other people's feelings to the material. It was what it is, material. Now, it didn't push no agenda. It was just subtle themes. And this could be, I don't know, ingeniously planted in there just to get people to buy more, to buy, to buy copies. But I can't help but to think that, I can't help but to think that, they just did that to push their story a lot more. And it did work. I gotta say, for Final Fantasy IX, it did work. I was engaged with the story. Now, shouldn't have gone back to the original Final Fantasy 1 fantasy style, probably not. After you released 7 and 8, and 7 and 8 were futuristic games. I don't think it should have, went to there, but it did what it had to do. The themes, also the added themes, such as the, feminist themes and the LGBT themes, made the game even better for the fact that, and that's just only because I played the game. If it was something else, then I probably would have went on that side. But the matter of fact is, it's not bad. Matter of fact, it wouldn't be Final Fantasy IX if you would have took those themes out, just because most people played. Actually, no, everyone besides the game testers probably. Well, the first time playing Final Fantasy IX was the actual copy. So I can't imagine a Final Fantasy IX with none of those themes. So good or bad doesn't matter. It made it what it is, and that's the most important thing, is to make it what it is. Was it a risk taker? Yes, but most games are risk takers, love it or hate it. Now, it didn't do as well as 7 and 8, which again, I think the thing that made Final Fantasy IX not sell well is they went back to the fantasy style after people got used to the futuristic stuff like 7 and 8, and then going back, it's kind of like, wait, what? Now we're going back? But good or bad, it didn't sell that well, but it sold well enough that it established its historium into the Final Fantasy franchise. And also made it possible for future games to use these themes again. So that's pretty much my whole take on the themes, the special themes that are added in the Final Fantasy IX. So may the crystal be with you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. Come watch my stream. I think tomorrow's like the last day. Tomorrow, the next day, is the last day of the Dissidia beta, so I'm not going to be streaming for a while until the game actually comes out, so, and I think they're going to tease Noctis out in the last part of the beta, so that means, come and watch, come and watch that. This is, Texas speech will be off, so, yeah. Also watch that too, so may the crystal be with you.
Hate it. Get up and do something with your life. Always screaming at me. Yeah. You know this. I go on this underground sound. I said, and always when everybody's trying to say I'm copycatting everybody else, but I'm more original than what you have come up with. Etros, curse. Etros, curse. Etros, curse. Etros, curse.